The great Katie Smith is here. We have a lot to talk about: the past, the present, and the future. Locked On Women's Basketball starts now.
Ogunbowale for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.
Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to Locked On Women's Basketball. I'm your host, Howard Megdal, and it is officially September, although technically, I will just say full disclosure, we recorded this August 31st. We are great to be back with you doing this 6 days a week, which we do, and you guys keep showing up for us. Another month with over 100,000 listens. Really appreciate it. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. Of course, and fortunately for you, it's not just me, it's the entire team from The Next over at thenexthoops.com, where we had another month of over 100 reported pieces about women's basketball. And I'll share it with you, over 1 million people reading in August alone. So you guys are building it with us. Be part of the movement. $9 a month, $72 a year, thenexthoops.com, making sure that we are here to cover 24/7. And, you know, I worked on a book project that just wrapped up and come in spring of 2024. We're going to talk more about it. But I watched the Detroit Free Press fail the Detroit Shock. And so this is personal for me in a really significant way. Katie Smith, who's with us, a legend. I mean, I go by win share. I know. You always laugh when I say it, but 11th all time in the history of the league in win shares, somebody whose playing career, I think, is, if anything, under-celebrated. So we're going to talk about that, especially in segment 2, some Detroit Shock memories. But in segment 1, we're going to get into the Minnesota Lynx, where Katie is an assistant coach. And so, Katie, the place I want to start is just, I heard before the season from a lot of sources that you guys were going to be in the lottery. I see that you're not in the lottery. What went wrong? What happened? How did that happen?
Going into the year with, Sylvia retiring, some spots unsure, going into the draft, with a high pick and just, starting with a rookie and some young players, we thought maybe it'd be a tough sled ahead with some of the talent that's in the league. So we were kind of bracing ourselves and trying to continue to improve. Obviously, we have Fee and, K-Mac, and you have pieces, but really kind of start to grow and build what we want it to be, and by bringing in some talented pieces through the draft. And but we didn't think it was going to be, thought it was going to be a little bit rough, sledding for the year. But we started out rough. But you know what? We have a great group who comes in every day and really tries to get better. They try to execute what's asked of them as game plans and defense, offense, and we ended up just battling, after that start and finding our way in that middle of the pack with others that we're comparable with. You know what I mean? There's a lot of us who, besides maybe the top 3, Washington with injuries, LA with injuries most of the year. Do they think they're in that mix and probably would have pushed us down? Maybe. You know what I mean? Things happen. All of us have had, bumps and bruises along the way. So we just played. We're not aiming for anything. We wanted to make sure we put our best foot forward every night and every day continue to improve.
I mean, that's clearly happened, right? Again, you talked about the tough sledding at the start. To start 0-6 and to be in a position to control your playoff destiny, and you guys have this opportunity to potentially even host, if I'm correct, you can finish as high as 4 still. It really is a remarkable turnaround, not just on the court, but also being able to keep people bought in. And I wonder how you did that.
Yeah, Reeve just sets up the tone, and it's not about, it's not about necessarily wins and losses. Just like, who do we want to be? You know what I mean? It's showing up. It's, representing yourselves, representing this organization, continue to be the best basketball player. You came in the best team. K McPhee, Tiff, Banham, BC, all those guys, the leaders and vets in this league, they show up every day and are engaged. And, there's been some stretches that, if you're a betting person, then you wouldn't have thought beating Connecticut and New York when we were on the road, beating Dallas twice, a week ago, and they're fighting for the lives and who they have and the size they have. And we go, so it shows like the discipline, the attention to detail, the game plan, like we go out and execute. And people perform. And it's not always pretty, and we're not blowing anybody out of the water, but we find a way to win in gritty ways. And it's been fun just to see them have that success. But it's really just about who do we want to be, and let's show up today. We've had some rough ones too, but we show up and we try to execute and perform and compete that night. And then if it's good, it's great. We get out of there with a win. If not, you know what? We learn from it. We move on. On to the next one. So just put ourselves in a position to have some fun. These are the fun games right now. Figuring out where you're going to be, and then go into the playoffs with a clean slate and just see what happens.
It is striking though, because it isn't just a binary moment where you start 0-6 and then something clicks and you go from there. I mean, you talked about the wins over Connecticut and New York. Both of those came without Fig. I mean, I think Cheryl made the joke at the post game that, we figured out was the missing piece was we need to play without a piece of Collier. But it's amazing, right? Fee, who, to my mind, I don't think there's a reasonable argument that she's not a top 10 player in the league. And you can make an argument, to my mind, that she's a top 5 player in the league. And so to be able to overcome that, you lose Lindsey Allen, who has been, the primary point guard for you guys for much of the season. You figure out a way through all of this. Is Cheryl the constant? What is the constant that allows this to happen? I don't think it's like a series of coincidences that Cheryl Reeve teams make the playoffs.
No, I think Reeve is definitely the constant. It's the constant communication. It's the constant trying to figure out what's going to work. LA goes down. Tiff has moved over to the 1. Dorka comes in and plays impactful minutes. Diamonds just continues to kind of evolve and continue to learn, how to perform at this level, consistently. So it's just like the next man up and staying ready, but it's also like the mindset of every day going into it and just like, we're coaching, we're planning to win. Like we're not like, we're not supposed to be in the playoffs. No, we're here. This is who we are. Like we're building habits and what we want to be. But it's just the prep. I mean, it's every day focusing on how we can get better. How can the team that we're playing the next day, like what do we need to do, and trying to execute that. And as I said, our players are really locked in and truly try to do what's asked every day.
And then on the coaching staff side, there's obviously so much talent there. And I'm not even just talking in terms of win shares between you and Rebecca Brunson. I just, there's obviously so many basketball minds there. What's the division of labor like? What's a day in the life of Katie Smith like as you guys are doing this?
Kind of normal for everybody. Reeve is the mastermind above everything, always really honed in on what we're doing. You know what I mean? Obviously, head coaches are always thinking like, all right, offensively, how can we get better? And then obviously individual scouts, how do we score against this team? Defensively, we probably, again, she has an idea and understands what they're doing. But it's also we're probably more locked into the opponents. Obviously our scouts, we all have our own scouts. And again, we dive deep into what they're running, how to guard them, matchups, things like that. So yeah, it's really, we all bring our own expertise. We all toss things around. We, chat it out, work it out, like something, don't like something. She's always up for ideas. Might poke some holes in them to make sure you see if it works, if it doesn't, if you really think it might work. So I'd like to see that conviction. But honestly, it's a lot of fun. There's some storytelling. There's a lot of social time inside of our meetings on top of basketball. It probably takes us 15 minutes to get ourselves situated into the meat and potatoes of everything.
Sure.
But honestly, it's just it's a real easy dynamic with all of our personalities, and just knowing that we kind of all bring our bring what we need to the table, but we also enjoy being around each other. So it's enjoyable work. Let's just say that.
No doubt, I'm sure. And to talk about that coaching tree and to talk about your role in it and what that meant and what it's going to mean going forward, we're going to get into in segment 2. But first, to let you guys at home know about our sponsor today. And our sponsor is FanDuel. You can get ready for the NFL season with a couple of incredible offers by FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook. New customers right now can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. You know, if you are out of market, as a lot of fans are. My in-laws, for instance, are New York Giants fans. They go down to Florida. Sunday Ticket is enormous for them. So join FanDuel by going to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/LOCKEDON and kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So when we think about the coaching tree, do you think of yourself as part of the Bill Laimbeer coaching tree, part of the Cheryl Reeve coaching tree? Cheryl obviously is part of the Bill coaching tree. How, take me through the family history.
A little bit of both, I think. Obviously Bill, I knew Reeve because of Bill, because of our time in Detroit. And I had my experiences in my relationship with Reeve there. Bill was the one who brought me to New York to finish up my career and asked me to move over to the coaching side. When he asked me to do that, he said, "Hey, play a year, come here with me and move over." So Bill definitely gave me my start and got me into this. But I was lucky enough to have obviously the respect I had for Cheryl during my time in Detroit. Obviously made it an easiest decision for me to come here with her. So I guess I technically have to give it to Bill. But then currently what I've learned, the things that I've done here is also Reeve. So I give them both kudos. I'm part of both of them. Even during my playing days, all of it matters. So both of them have a piece of me on this side.
And I think, to be fair, I think Bill would demand credit as well. So I think that plays.
Maybe he demanded for Reeve. He's probably
right.
The reason Reeve did everything she's done, and so.
It's really true. And again, and that's probably its own podcast about the ways in which Bill has been instrumental in a lot of different figures in this lead on the playing and coaching side. But I think it's important to isolate on something. And if you'll give me the point of personal privilege to talk about it in this way, you coached under Bill. You had a head coaching opportunity in New York. It was a very challenging time in New York to be a head coach. It was a very challenging time for the franchise for a lot of different reasons. Now that you have had further opportunities with Cheryl, first of all, do you feel like you're in a different place relative to coaching? And more to the point, how important do you think it is? I'm not just talking about you, but in general, for us to make sure that the best basketball minds are getting multiple opportunities, because it does have to hit just right for a coaching opportunity to be the right one.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think it's awesome, the players that are in the league now coaching in different roles, even the GMs and obviously even on the NBA side. I just think all the experience of being on a bench, doing the scouting, being in the gym, understanding just all the things that go into it of managing a team and running a team and all the pieces that you need. So I just think that's the emphasis around that is crucial, and just continue to have that. And then, I think it's those opportunities of being interviewed and being ready. And I think, for me, it's always about the best fit now, because, New York was a challenge in a lot of ways, lots of things I had to grow and improve on. But it has to be a fit that has to be the right place that you can thrive, and have the support and the resources and everything you need. So being here being under Bill was awesome. I learned a ton. Being under Reeve has grown and expanded my knowledge of being a head coach and also basically a CEO of your team and your organization in so many levels. So I do feel way more prepared. Again, every year you learn something. It doesn't matter if you're an assistant, a player, a head coach, like you're just constantly like soaking things up. And I've just had a blast here kind of learning and expanding your knowledge. And it's when the right time comes, the right time will come. But I'm where I'm at. I just want to continue to kind of do my part and do it really, really well. When those opportunities come, I'll be ready. And, when the right one comes, we'll see.
It is certainly my hope. And again, I am going to speak out of my end of things, which is to say that we had a long time in this league where women didn't get first coaching opportunities. And in fact, there was a train of thought for a long time that held that I believe kept Cheryl Reeve from getting an opportunity at a time where the idea was that men had to be the coaches to be successful. And that has obviously been put to bed mercifully. The idea now that women need to get second opportunities as well in this league is long overdue. I guess just to kind of leave the New York, Minnesota aspect of things, Target Center or Westchester County Center, which do you think is the better place to play ball?
Yeah, Target Center wins that one, but we did what we could. But Target Center, I'm telling you, man, this place is awesome. But I've always, playing here back in the day, and now like this fan base is pretty special. I mean, they are loyal and they love basketball. Like they even when opposing teams come in. I mean, we had who was it, New York here the other night, and gosh, they rocking Sabrina jerseys and things, which drives you crazy. But you also love it, like you know what I mean. You just love that they're fans and they drive and they come out. So they are awesome, and they love the game.
It is great to see. It is the legit place to go see basketball happen. I agree with you. I'll second that about. It was an easy commute, but I don't miss Westchester County Center, and I'll leave it at that. So we'll be back in just a moment with segment 3. We're going to have some Detroit Shock memories before we go. So, Katie, when we think about that Detroit Shock team, and again, to me, in a lot of ways, the teams that moved, the teams, that folded are one thing, but the teams that moved, we don't necessarily celebrate their history as much as I think we need to, as much as like there's now a generation of fans that came of age that don't understand just how special it was to play for that Detroit Shock team, to win titles and to be in those sold out arenas that not coincidentally had Carly Knox doing the work to help get that arena sold out. So again, it all comes full circle.
Right.
But just when you think back to that time, like what are the things that pop the most for you about those years?
So intertwined between Minnie and like Detroit, because I did get traded from Minnie to Detroit, and I was just, blindsided. I thought I was be with the Lynx forever. You know what I mean? I was just that's this type, and then you get traded that first year, and you're like, what? Like, how do you fit in? They're the bad girls. You know what I mean? They had a team already, and I get there. I finished up the year with them, but it was still trying to figure it all out, right? We made the playoffs, but didn't win. But then that off season, Bill conversations he's having with you, and he's like, and I'm a lead guard, but they got a bunch of scorers and Deanna Nolan, Tweedy, and Swin's there. They just got a squad, and so I'm like, where do I fit? So he's having conversations saying, all right, you're a lead guard. You're not a point guard. You're a lead guard. We'll change the name, whatever works. And he's like, he just had a vision, and his vision was like a lot like his Pistons team.
Right.
With the offenses, the defense, that's kind of who we were. We ran the same sets. And that offseason just came in with an open mind and just ready to do whatever. And it was just a magical fit with the players, with the staff, Ricky, Bill, and Reeve. Reeve was the one just probably doing the probably 99% of the work behind the scenes.
Mhm.
She was my, confidant on the bench when Bill was getting on my nerves, and she's the one that had to calm me down and like talk some sense into me when he's driving me crazy. And so it was just a perfect fit personality wise with our crew, Lane Powell, Deanna Nolan, Cheeky. Like it was just the way we were as competitors, the way we were, our personalities, it like all fit. And we competed in practice, we competed in games, and just not only were we physical, we were good basketball players, but we were smart. And we could change from, I remember Bill would put in new offenses against Sacramento because they guarded things this way. And then such and such, because they guard something, he'd put a little wrinkle in to go against these guys. And we would execute it, and we would know it, and we would just handle it. And basketball wise, was some of my best memories, Planette coming off the bench, just like, because we could hang with anybody, and you knew you could win at any time. So.
Fournette was part of the series of players that Bill has had through the years where he'll give the players starter minutes coming off the bench, so effectively ends up with 6 starters. Does that keep people more motivated, even just knowing that kind of role is up for grabs?
I think so. I think it's the way maybe you communicate it to them, and that's where I think Bill and Cheryl have a lot of similarities. The communication piece of the way they engaged and explained, and kind of, so then the buy-in is there, like what is expected. But I think it was like, if you handle your business and you do your job, like you're going to get minutes, and this is what I expect, this is what I like, this is what keeps you on the floor. Don't worry about this. But then you got to have somebody with the right mindset if you're worried about the wrong things. But I think that's where him and Reeve are good at, is creating their team with pieces that and people that they know will fit into that role. And I think that just, makes everything better when you have the personality then to go with the skill that then can buy into the role. And it's all about winning. At the end of the day, it was about selfless team basketball and doing your job, but doing it your way, like using your gifts. And that's what I think we all embrace, because we're all like, let's do you. And like, we're all going to do our thing, and we'll do it together.
I do have to point out, just as we go back to the history in 2005, you were an all-star with the Lynx. You were traded. At the time you were traded, the Shock were out of the playoffs. The Lynx were in the playoffs, had the season ended that day. The Lynx ended up out of the playoffs. The Shock ended up in the playoffs. Another thing that doesn't seem like a series of coincidences to me, and I guess I wonder for you, even beyond just like the ability on the court, when did you know that this was the right fit for you? Like you said, from the outside, Cheryl's talked about this, that she thought she'd never worked for Bill until she went in, had an interview. Okay, well now that's where I want to be. Like, when did you know that year that like, oh, this is going to work?
Yeah, I don't think I knew the year I got traded. Like I didn't. It was literally, when you get traded halfway through, and it's just like, what? Your head's spinning. My dog's still back in Minnesota. Because you're literally like, you're flying. I flew from Sac to Detroit, and then I can go get them later. You know what I mean? So it's like you're just making it the last part of the season. Again, you just do your job. You just try to you catching on to the plays, blah blah blah. It was really once we finished, and then going into that off season, having the conversations, and this is kind of the vision, this is what we see for you, and then just coming in ready to roll. Like, I'll do whatever it is to win. And then when you notice and you have a team that every time you step on the floor, you can win. And so then like, we can compete for a championship. Like, you're just not going to let it go, because that's all you want at that point. You just want to win, and you want to have a chance to win a championship, and we were all about it. So.
And when you did, I obviously Tweety was the MVP in 06. You scored 17, 6 assists in that championship game. Just what was that moment like? I mean, it wasn't your first championship. I know that. It was, we can go back to the ABL days, and and you, again, in a series of coincidences, kept celebrating titles. But like, what did that one mean to you?
It meant a lot, because I think, the ABL, we won 2. I didn't win one in college. I came close, but then it was my freshman year. The next 3 years were challenging. We were 500. Didn't have success like you think. You go in the ABL, awesome team. You know what I mean? We could, play. So we win 2 there. And then you go into the WNBA and you're good enough. We were in the Western Conference, which was tough back then. So we had to battle for our lives every night, even though, and maybe if we were in the East, we would have been, 1 or 2. But we just, in the West, we were who we were. So then it's like 6.5 years in or whatever. When you get to that point and you have a team, has the ability to win, you're just like, you're not going to take it for granted. Like there's not a night, there's not anything that you're going to take. Cause you're like, you don't get that many chances. You don't, the teams that they're capable of winning. And I think that's my mindset. Like, it was like, I didn't care. Like, we're coming to, you know what I mean? I will give everything I have. And that's kind of how we all did. But I was like, whatever I need to do, let's get this thing done. So it was just knowing, sometimes people like, oh yeah, they keep winning. That thing, it's hard to win. And if you have the ability to, and you have teams that are special enough, then you just don't want to take it for granted. So I think that's kind of my mindset was always, and just kind of a relief, I guess. Winning championships kind of solidifies or shows you maybe you're, deserved it or that you're good enough or something. But it was just really super proud, and just, I think it just didn't take it for granted, because when you're younger, you think it's just going to keep happening. So as you get older, they just mean a little bit more, because just how hard it is.
No doubt about it. And we could do a whole other show on why there never should have been an end to the Detroit Shock, but we'll save that for another conversation. The great Katie Smith, always delighted when you're with us. I appreciate your time. To the listeners at home, thank you always. This week's going to be a big one. We're going to have a show each day, each of the next 3 days, about an MVP candidate. So we're going to have full-on show, one about Brianna Stewart, one about Asia Wilson, one about Alyssa Thomas. And we're going to lay it all out, and we'll let everybody decide. And I can just tell you as a voter, I'm having a hell of a time figuring it out myself. So until then, I am Howard Megdal, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, wishing all of you a wonderful Monday.
McLellan for the win.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball.